Hello, and thank you for joining today's webinar, Business Intelligence Solutions with HBK's Corey Shaner. Before we begin, let's review a few housekeeping items. You'll notice at the top of your screen there are multiple tools you can use. All of these engagement tools are resizable and movable, so you're welcome to move them around to get the most out of your monitor space. You can expand your slide area or maximize it to full screen by clicking on the arrows in the top right corner. If you have any questions during the webcast, you can submit them through the Q&A tool at the bottom of your screen. We'll also answer these questions during the webcast, but if we run out of time, it will be answered via email later. A copy of today's slide deck and additional help materials are available in the related content tool. We encourage you to download any resources or links that you may find helpful. For the best viewing experience, we suggest closing any other program or browser sessions running in the background that could cause issues. You can find additional answers to some common technical issues in the Help tool at the bottom of your screen. At the conclusion of today's webinar, you'll receive a survey in the presentation. We would appreciate it if you could please provide your feedback. You'll also receive a follow-up email within 24 to 48 hours with a link to view a recording of today's webinar. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Amy.
Good morning. My name is Amy Reinold, and I am with HBK Manufacturing Solutions, and I'm here to welcome you to today's webinar on Business Intelligence Solutions. Today with us, we have a very special guest, Corey Shaner, who is our Director of Business Intelligence. Corey is going to talk to us about different ways that manufacturers can use business intelligence and data analytics to improve their business. As Lori said, if you need CPE credit, please make sure to complete the poll questions throughout the presentation, and a certificate will be mailed to you after the presentation. With that being said, I will turn it over to Corey.
Good morning. My name is Corey Shaner. I'm the Director of Business Intelligence here at HBK. Today we're going to talk about data, but more importantly, business intelligence. Business Intelligence Solutions is a new service offering here at HBK. We have seen firsthand the value of leveraging the data that we are creating in our day-to-day operations to drive decision-making and performance, and we want to be able to help our clients do the same thing. I joined the organization about 3 months ago. Prior to being here at HBK, I spent the last 5 years as the Director of Business Intelligence at a local hospital system. But it was the 8 years in operations prior to that drove my passion for data. When I was in operations, I continuously found myself wanting more information to ensure I was making the right decisions. The problem was I was limited to standard reports that came out of the software I used. These reports typically didn't meet my needs, so I was spending too much time exporting data and manually manipulating it in Excel to get the answers that I needed. The manual process was time-consuming, and it took me away from my other duties. It was also an extremely reactionary process because by the time I was finished with the calculations, it may have been a week or even longer since a trend began. I knew there had to be a better way to do things. After all, we had numerous other directors all trying to do the same thing I was. It was not a good use of our time, and the element of human error and misinterpretation was extremely high. My previous employer had a programmer on staff that was creating some custom exports for us. So one day I sat down with him, and that was my aha moment. I was able to see all these tables of data and how they could be connected to each other. Over the course of that next week, I pulled together a dashboard using data that I had exported from a few of our software systems and pulled it together in an interactive dashboard using a tool called Power BI. My CEO was instantly in love with the flow of information and the ability to interact with it, and he gave me the green light to begin putting a data program in place where we would be feeding the decision makers with packaged information so they could spend their time spotting trends and making decisions rather than analyzing data in Excel. If this sounds like your organization, there's a better way to drive performance, and we're here to help. What gets measured gets managed. I'm going to come back to this quote several times today. As a data program for any organization matures, you eventually are going to run into a situation where you want more information, but the information may not exist because you never thought to measure it before. This is an opportunity to put a process in place to capture a data point that will allow you to manage a process or a person better. At this time, if you need CPE credit, poll question number 1 is live. Please check in. Before we get into business intelligence, let's first discuss data. Our personal lives and work lives are connected by software and devices more than ever before, and there's no turning back. At home, we all have smartphones, smartwatches, and Alexa devices. At work, we log on to a computer and use multiple software applications to perform our day-to-day jobs. All those devices and applications are tracking every keystroke and mouse click we make. Somewhere in the data that I created today, I could measure what time I initially logged into my computer, how much time I spent in each application that I used. If I was searching for something on the internet, I could find what I Googled and when. And we've all searched something on our phones, and then we've seen those pop-up ads follow us for the next few days. This is an example of how a company is using data to drive their sales for their company. If we can harness the data from our businesses and get it in the right hands in a timely manner, we will be able to make better decisions faster and drive the performance of our organizations. When I first found the graph on this slide, I had no idea what a zettabyte even was, so I had to look it up. A zettabyte is actually 1 billion terabytes of data. By 2025, the world will create 181 zettabytes of data annually. I'm a visual person and I'm a data nerd, so I wanted to create a visual. So imagine 7 Empire State Buildings filled from floor to ceiling with servers. That's how many servers would be needed to capture 1 year's worth of information created by the world. So we know we're creating a lot of data, but why should we harness it? Everyone on this call today probably knows the guys in this picture. I'm a little bit of a history buff, and there's been a docu-series on the History Channel called The Men Who Built America. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, check it out in your free time. For those that have seen it, I would envision watching a docu-series at some point in the future about the guys on this slide. These guys all built billion-dollar businesses by measuring every single aspect of their customers and employees, so they had the intelligence to make better decisions faster than their competition. In some cases, they even built entirely new industries. Poll question 2 is now live. Please check in. So what is business intelligence? Business intelligence helps organizations analyze historical and current data so they can quickly uncover actionable insights for making strategic decisions. BI tools make this possible by processing large data sets across multiple sources and presenting the findings in visual formats that are easy to understand and share. Business intelligence is truly understanding what makes a business successful. It's understanding the wants and needs of your customer base, understanding how to make a product the most efficient way possible, understanding when and where to buy raw materials to ensure that your inventories are minimal, understanding when machinery needs routine maintenance in order to keep working properly and minimize downtime for operations. These scenarios will be different for every business, but we glean this intelligence by interpreting the business that our operations generate. So how do we start using our company's data? The initial phase in developing any successful BI or data solution is understanding the wants and needs of key stakeholders. This is typically completed through interviews with executives and managers to get an understanding of what tools and information would better equip them to perform their job functions and improve the performance of the organization. These interviews not only identify overarching business requirements, but they will also identify stakeholder requirements, technology required to offer the solution, what technology is needed, and transition requirements. Together, these requirements will be used to complete a business requirements document, or BRD, which will be the roadmap for successful completion of the project. BRDs can also evolve over time. They're not set in stone. They're purely in place as a starting point to make the most efficient use of resources. Once we understand the goals of an organization, we can begin the true hands-on work in bringing your data to life. So the process. These are the steps that we will discuss in the next few slides that will take the data from our software applications to the final packaged reports and dashboards. The completed BRD will identify the software programs which contain the data needed to complete the solution. The development team will work with these software vendors to ensure that data is accessible. Vendors typically charge a one-time or a monthly fee for access to the vendor database. And once access to the database has been granted, developers will be able to create APIs which will extract the client's data from the vendor database. This data will then be transformed as needed and loaded into a data warehouse. This warehouse will provide an easily accessible environment where BI tools can be connected to display the performance metrics for the organization. An API is an application programming interface. Think of it as a pipeline that allows the data to flow from your software applications to a data warehouse. The API keeps the warehouse up to date with real-time information, so you're always viewing what is going on in your business as it's occurring. The data warehouse. Data from multiple software applications will be pulled into a data warehouse where BI tools for reports and visualizations can be connected. The goal would be to host this warehouse on a client-owned server if one exists. If that doesn't exist, we could set up a cloud-based environment. A SQL environment is the most common type of warehouse that's used. This type of environment allows you to pull in data from an unlimited amount of source applications. It also provides a staging area where data can be transformed if it is not in a format that is needed to be displayed properly. Think of a data warehouse as a file folder on your computer where a bunch of Excel spreadsheets are saved. These tables within that folder would contain all the historical data from that software application. Discovery, organization, and cataloging. Once data has been imported into the warehouse, we'll be able to see multiple tables of data which collectively create a relational database. Depending on the complexity of the individual software program, there could be tens of thousands of tables. Each table typically has a primary key structure. The primary keys allow us to connect the tables and pull unrelated information together. Think of a primary key as the first variable you would enter when you execute a VLOOKUP function in Excel. It's a unique data element that has a relationship with another piece of data. These discovered relationships should then be documented in a catalog. This catalog acts as the playbook for developers when creating KPIs and dashboards. Cataloging is extremely important, especially in the environment that we are in today with turnover in our labor forces. Having the information documented keeps projects on track if we run into a turnover situation. Poll number 3 is now live. Please confirm your attendance. Once a data warehouse has been built and data is flowing from the client's software applications, we can now begin the process of automating certain projects which have historically been manual. An example of an automation project would be a routine report that has historically required the manipulation of an analyst. When data is routinely exported and the same calculations are repeated on a routine cadence, it's likely a process that can be automated using technology. We can also begin building operational and financial dashboards that provide real-time insights into the performance of the business. These real-time analytics highlight opportunities and potential problems as they are occurring, so decision makers can make data-driven decisions faster. In some cases, when a significant amount of historical data exists, we can even create predictive models that could be used for budgeting and forecasting. The next step in the process is connecting BI tools to the warehouse so information can be displayed. Over the last 10 years, two primary tools have emerged as the prominent platforms for dashboards and reports. Those two platforms are Power BI and Tableau. These tools bring your data to life, allowing you to truly consume the information and make those better data-driven decisions in real time. Tableau was actually the first tool that was available for the end consumer. It has great visualizations, but it does require a higher understanding of programming languages in order to take advantage of some of its advanced features. My tool of preference is Power BI. Power BI is a Microsoft product, and it's very intuitive and has integrated AI features. I was our internal Microsoft Excel wizard, so as you can imagine, the formulas and layout of the tool were very familiar, and my learning curve was low. This is a product that we are going to jump into in the next few minutes. Power BI is great for visualizing the data, but the biggest reason that we've chosen Power BI as our tool of choice is the integration with other Microsoft products. Microsoft calls these products the Power Platform, and there are three primary applications that add some great features to Power BI. The first one, Power Apps, is a drag-and-drop low-code application design tool that allows you to essentially create your own software application to meet a specific business need. The most common design is for workflow management. An example would be the routing of an order through the business from order intake through billing. At each point in the journey of the order, a new person may be required to sign off on the order or perform a particular function. The data along the journey is also being captured in the Dataverse, where it can be accessed for display in Power BI. The Dataverse is a data warehouse managed by Microsoft that collects data about the application that you built. Power Automate is another tool that's part of the Power Platform, and it's probably the most widely used Power Platform tool behind Power BI. Power Automate allows you to automate certain processes based on triggers. I use Power Automate to send emails to end users that should be monitoring data in particular dashboards. These emails can be set to deliver PDFs, CSV reports, or links to the data based on a predefined schedule or based on certain achievements in the data. For example, if we exceeded our sales goal for the day, I could automate an email that may send a congratulatory email to my sales team with a link to the automated dashboard. Power Virtual Agents is one of the newer members of the Power Platform, and it's an AI-based tool that most commonly connects consumers with staff that can help meet their specific needs. I'm sure everyone has been on a website shopping for something and has seen a pop-up that looks like a person working for the company that is willing to chat with you to understand your needs. This is Power Virtual Agents. This tool is designed to look for keywords and phrases in order to connect you to an end user that can more efficiently help you with your problem. The combination of these tools is what sets Power BI apart and why we've chosen it as our platform for development. I am now going to hop over to my Power BI desktop. So I can show you a few of the things that I previously discussed. Today we're going to look at some simple dashboards that I pulled together for a made-up company we'll call HBK Resins. This data was 100% manufactured. We respect the confidentiality of all our clients, so for this demo, we did not want to use live data. So if you're joining this call today and you're in the industry and something doesn't appear to be within a reasonable range, it's because it's manufactured. This is strictly for illustrative purposes so you can see the interaction of the data and how information could be displayed for your organization. Before we jump into the dashboards, I want to go over a few things that I mentioned during my slide deck. What gets measured gets managed. Since this is manufactured data, there are certain data points that I would like to measure if this was a real organization. I also mentioned the term Relational Database. In this model, I have 20 tables that have all been used to pull together all the information that is being displayed on my dashboards. On the right side of my screen here, you can see the 20 tables that are making up this model. And if you look at these connections, this is a schema. And these are the tables that have related information. Each one of these lines is showing the relationship to the other table that has relevant information. These relationships are what allows my information to react when I click on certain filters or certain data elements that are being displayed. The next thing I want to show is how the data actually looks when it's pulled into the tool. So just like Excel, each of these tables have organized columns and rows of data. This is when I had my aha moment 5 years ago and saw how the information could be connected. In this table, you also see that I'm working with over 320,000 rows of data in this particular model, just in this table. Power BI is extremely efficient with the way it stores data and portrays it. The longer you've been working with a particular software application, the more data you will have available. I have one model that I'm currently working with that has over 60 million rows of data in one of the tables, and it's still extremely efficient in processing all that information. The last thing that I want to show is what a measure is. So on my screen, you can see a table called All Measures. And within this, I have all these different data points on the right side of my screen. And these are data points that I have built. These are short strings of logic that are identifying certain objects in my dashboard. And when we get there, I'll show you exactly what that is. But these are just brief interpretations showing certain filters, and it's telling the computer what to display. Now let's jump over to the fun stuff. We're going to jump into Power BI, and I'm going to show you an app that I built that I feel could be related to manufacturing clients. And hopefully you can use your imagination and see what could be done for your company. So this has been packaged as an app, and on this screen, we could add your logo. All the colors are completely customizable. This is an open frame template. So as we go through the different screens, you'll see different visuals that I've built, but everything's completely customizable. On this first dashboard, I'm looking at sales data for this company. Remember, this is just an example. I'm just going to start by drilling down on a few different product lines. And just so we have a little backstory on my imaginary company, we have 4 primary resins that we manufacture with 20 different resin grades. And as I click on these filters, you'll see how the information reacts to each other because of the relationships that have been built among those tables of information that I initially pulled in. So let's look at my PET production. You'll see here I only have 4 distinct clients between last year and this year that are actually purchasing my product. On the map, you can also see that it drilled down to those 4 distinct clients. And I can actually hover over where that client is located and what their current year sales are. On the map, you'll also notice that none of my Florida customers are shown anymore because they are not purchasing that particular resin. On the right side of the screen, you can see the name of the 4 clients that are purchasing this particular product. And you can see what their current year sales are and what percentage of that particular product each client is responsible for purchasing. I also have the availability to click on certain aspects on this screen, which will drill down even further. As you notice, I just clicked on the state of Pennsylvania. Within Pennsylvania, we only have 1 client that's purchasing PET, and we can see what that client's particular sales are for the year, gross sales versus last year, up quite a bit, and we can see their sales per day for the current year versus last year as well. I can also click on an individual company. So just by clicking on Blasco Extruded Plastics, I can see that Blasco has grown at nearly more than 4x versus last year. When I click on Ford, they have no previous sales history for the same time period last year, so they appear like they're a new company. When I click on Plastic Technologies, they've also seen significant growth, going from $1,800 in sales to over $277,000. CNS Construction also appears to be a brand new client. As you'll see, though, everything is interactive and it's reacting when I'm clicking on other data elements. If I look at the historical sales growth, I can also see that I have significant year-over-year growth. And when I look at the monthly chart here, I can see that I've seen a huge uptick in my PET sales since April. Now, if this was a real company, I might know the backstory. Maybe it's a new sales rep that came into play, or maybe we just found a particular use for PET that a client wasn't aware of previously. Let's jump into PVC sales. As you'll notice, I have conditional formatting on certain aspects on the screen. So my PVC sales for the year are actually significantly down. You'll notice that for the first 4 months of this year, I actually had 0 PVC sales. Now, this is an imaginary client, so we'll just say we got new equipment, so we were down the first 4 months of this year. Each of these filters allow me to drill down, though, on a specific company or product line or resin grade, and it's all interactive. Let's jump over to order volumes next. I've got a couple different graphs shown on this screen here. I've got KPIs, I've got gauges, I've got horizontal bar charts. Each of these show the information a little bit differently. Quickly, I can see that my polypropylene manufacturing or production has almost doubled for year to date. I can also see that my polystyrene production is up significantly year to date. When I look at the pie charts, I can see that my PVC production for the last 90 days compared to the last 365 is down. I've also got conditional formatting here. So instead of the red light, green light, I'm using blue as being good, red as being bad. Today, we have received orders for 804 tons of material. Last month, I can see that I received orders for 15,000 tons of material, comparative to the previous July, which only had orders of 5,312 tons. So my orders for this month are up 196% compared to last year during the same month. The same thing is true with orders last month. And I've already exceeded my annual goal. Mind you, my goal was only to exceed last year's numbers, but we've already hit that target already this year. On these matrices, I can also sort the information to see what products was I producing the most over the course of the past year. Last year year-to-date, current year year-to-date, and what's the year-to-date change. So if I want to see what has changed the most from a negative standpoint, from a percentage, it's PVC. My suspension resin pipe grade is down significantly. We're producing 3,477 tons less than we did during the same time period last year. I can also see what customers were responsible for that decrease in purchasing. If I click on PVC on this matrix, it'll drill down to the customers that were responsible for that decline. When I look at PVC, I can now see that Infraplastics was responsible for most of that decline for PVC production. They're down 3,400 tons out of the 3,800 that was ordered last year. Next, we're going to jump over to order lag and open orders. And this is a challenge that a lot of companies are facing right now. They're having a hard time getting supplies, which is pushing back the ability to deliver the goods to the end consumer. Here we can see that in April of 2020, our lag jumped significantly. Prior to that standpoint, prior to the pandemic, we were averaging 11.6 days. That was our fulfillment log for all products combined. In April of that year, because this plant shut down production for a period of time until they could get protocols in place, the lag actually went to more than 30 days. That lag is now improving. We can see the 90-day lag is now down to 14.3 days, the 30 days at 13.5. So we're getting closer to where we were historically, but we still have a little way to go. This is open orders on the bottom here, so I can see what the status is of these open orders. Is something currently in process and getting ready to be produced, or is it on hold? If I click on hold, I can drill down to what that product is that's on hold. Here on the bottom, you'll see it's PET, and it's 100% PET. I can also see what clients are waiting on those orders. So I've got 3 clients right now waiting on 256 tons of PET. And I can see what the lag is on average from when they placed that initial order. Now on the top of the screen, when I clicked on hold, you'll notice that this went blank. It actually says blank, and so did the fulfillment lag. Well, the fulfillment lag is based on completed orders. So there's not a relationship with the open order status, and that's why that went blank. If I click on total, all the information will come back immediately. I can also drill down on this tree diagram, to show the next level here, and it'll show me my resin grades. So it'll show me what resin grades still need to be produced for each of these customers. Again, it's still interactive, so I can click on any of these boxes, and it's going to drill down to what customers are waiting on those orders. This next screen looks at labor usage. Labor is one of the largest cost line items of any company, so ensuring your staffing is in line with your business needs is vital. On this screen, I can quickly see that my labor is actually trending very well. On this productive labor trend, I want to see that my productive labor is trending with my orders, with the tons of resin that I'm actually producing. On the top here in this matrix, I've also created some stats, and I'm looking at my productive hours for the trailing 12 months, how many tons were produced over the trailing 12 months, and how many productive hours does it take to produce a ton. This is set up so I can see each resin grade that I produce, as well as the positions of those people that are responsible for producing it. I'm also looking at the labor and production for the last month and the current month. And here you can see on my totals for all product lines, I'm averaging 2.5 productive hours per ton produced. Last month I was also at 2.5, but this month my labor is only at 2.1. Now, one thing that I have learned with providing this information is that labor in the current month is sometimes hard to look at. You have managers that don't get time punches in on time, and until it's time for that payroll period to end, sometimes punches don't get entered in the computer. So what we actually did at my prior organization to change this was we delivered these productive labor reports very similar to this on a routine cadence. And managers were getting PDFs of screens similar to this showing the labor for their department over the last month and for the year to date. And their managers were also getting copied on that information. And we immediately saw about a 3% decrease in productive labor usage once we created the awareness. Once the managers saw the information that was being presented and they knew somebody was looking at it. Creating that visibility also created accountability for those departments. So overall, on this screen, productive labor is looking good. What I would like to see is over the last couple months, as unproductive labor should trend down when demand for our product increases. We've seen an increase in production since January of 22, but over the last couple months, we've seen a spike in unproductive labor. It's obviously vacation season, but when we've got a high demand for our product, we also want to make sure that we're staffed appropriately. This labor last week kind of goes back to what I initially said about punches possibly not being complete in the system. So from the 13th through the 15th, it looks like we saw a decrease in labor. That could change when we hit the end of a payroll period. I've also tried to get predictive here, looking at labor for the next 2 weeks. So from an expected labor standpoint, I know that for all products, I should be around 2.5 hours of productive labor per ton produced. And I know what orders I have sitting in the queue that are waiting to actually go into production. Based on that production schedule, I can also forecast what my labor should be. Now, if your time clock allows and schedules are being put into that time clock, you may also be able to compare two lines on this graph, one showing the expected labor and one showing the actual scheduled labor for the next weeks. Next, I'm going to jump into costs. We've all seen the cost of all goods that we're purchasing increase. And in the plastics industry, they have three main products, oil being the largest, but chlorine and TPA for this client are also large as well. So you can see on the graph how much those costs of those raw materials have increased. Chlorine is up 50%, oil is up 68% year over year, same month, and TPA is also up almost 63%. So we've seen a huge increase in the cost of the raw materials that go into our resins. We've also increased our labor costs. With inflation, this company has always given their employees a cost of living increase. That cost of living increase over the past year has cost this company almost 8%. You can see how much those wages for those individual positions have actually went up. And because of the costs have went up, they've also had to increase the price that they're producing this material for their clients. And those costs are shown on the bottom. This next screen takes a look at waste. Waste and scrap have huge value for an organization with the scale of this business. We measure our deliverable yields as the amount of production that actually makes it to its client. On this screen, last year I had a deliverable yield of 94.1%. These are blue because they're being benchmarked against last year's yield. Current year, I'm at 97.1% overall, but my current month is not doing that great. It's better than last year, but it's below what my target is. My target is actually shown on here on this graph as my red line, being 97.5%. These conditional formats can be changed to whatever level or benchmark you're going after. If you wanted it to be, you want a 2% waste benchmark, then we would set it at 98%. This KPI is actually showing that we're doing well. Even though the value of our waste for the last month was almost $270,000, it was better than the same time period a year ago. A year ago, our waste was at $392,000. Over the course of the year, this company has waste in excess of $5 million, which could make a significant impact to the bottom line if they got their waste under control. This top chart is a stacked area chart. And although I have this graph below that shows my deliverable yields, I can also see on this chart when there's a variance between the tons that I'm producing and my waste. I can see those gaps where it's kind of pink here, and that's where I had a problem. And this goes back to where you would want additional information. If it gets measured, it gets managed. My questions would be, if I saw a chart like this, did I have a common employee that needed additional training or a group of employees that needed additional training? Or was something directly related to the product? Did temperatures in production get too hot, or were they too cold during production? Or maybe the pressure on a tank was too high or too low. Whatever the case may be, there's probably a way to measure it and ensure that these instances are limited in the future. Now I'm going to hop back to the end of our presentation and poll question number 4 is now open. If you require CPE credit, please check in now. And at this time, we'll open it up to questions.
Thanks, Corey. That was really helpful. We did get a couple of questions in. The first one is, can reports be printed from Power BI?
Absolutely. So you have the ability to export reports as PDFs, and I'm going to share my screen again. Okay. So we have the ability to download and save a copy. We could print the page. We can even embed it in a website or a portal. If I go back to one of these screens, we also have the ability to export data from one of these matrices. Say an end user wanted to take a look at information a different way. They have the ability to export the data. They could pull it into a CSV file, and they could do really anything that they want to do with it. And with the Power Platform and Power Automate, we also have that ability to send it directly to somebody's inbox. If it's something that they only want to take a look at once a week or even once a month, we have the ability to set a schedule where somebody would receive that information on that routine cadence. We also have the ability to send notifications. So all of this data in this application, it's web-based. So however you want to consume your information, we can create mobile views if somebody wants to take a look at the information on the go and see it on a phone, or if they want a notification when, if they wanted a notification on orders today, if it hit 900, say 900 was the all-time record for this particular business, we could set those notifications so they came directly through on a phone. There's really no limit on what can be done, and Microsoft is always very receptive. If there's a need or desire that your particular company has, chances are there's multiple companies out there with that same request, and Microsoft works on a voting schedule. The more votes you get for a particular solution, the quicker they typically develop that.
The next question is, what is the most important thing manufacturers can do with this data?
Start using it if you haven't already. I've seen it firsthand with my prior organization and also here. Just getting the information and the data into that end user or manager's hands or into the CEO's hands drives change. And a lot of business owners have a very good, they manage by their gut. They have a very good sense of what's going on in their business. But the data either reaffirms those intuitions or it can prove them completely wrong. But until you get your hands on the information and you're seeing it in somewhat real time, you can't prove whether you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing.
Great, thanks, Corey. Can Power BI be connected to my accounting software or ERP to collect and report on the data?
We would have to take a look at the particular ERP or accounting software that you're using. There are hundreds of built-in connections with Power BI where it would actually be able to connect directly to an application without having to go through the data warehouse step. No matter what, unless it's a customized solution, 99% of the time there's a way to connect to that data and pull it into a warehouse if that step is absolutely necessary. So it would just have to be a conversation with the vendor to make sure that access is available, and then you'd have to work with a development team to get the data warehouse set up.
Is Power BI desktop or cloud-based? And is there an app?
Power BI has actually changed recently, and I still use the desktop to do all my development, and that's how I created this app. But it is moving to more of a web-based platform. There's certain features that are available in the desktop for me as a developer that aren't available on the web side of things yet, and that's why I have not transitioned. But you can develop either way. You want to consume the information from the web, though. The desktop is not the way to consume the information. And if you are designing this information and deploying it to your end users in-house, I would highly suggest using an app like I delivered the information today, rather than delivering the information through a workspace. It's just a cleaner way of getting the information to the end user without allowing them to apply too many filters and kind of get themselves into a pickle.
Thanks, Corey. We have time for one more question. Can Power BI be used for financial data, operational data, or both?
Both. There's really no limit. As long as you can get access to the data, you could show anything. You could show financial aspects. I would have loved to have gotten into AR days and seen the effects over time, especially through the pandemic with that. But you can really look at anything, financial or operational. You can look at text data as well. So if there were certain fields in your software applications that are being populated by text, you could look at those keywords to create KPIs or metrics as well. There's really no limit.
Great for helping us today go through all this information. I just want to remind everyone that you can view Corey's bio on the right-hand side for our presenters' information. There is a link to email him over there, and you can check out his LinkedIn profile and his bio. And I thank everyone for attending today, and thanks again to Corey and Amy. And again, please fill out the survey at the end of the session and join us next month. Thanks so much.